Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about velocity versus planning. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, sometimes I have the impression that there is development made to be fast and development with standards and planning, or are they the same thing? Well, uh, they are the same thing. It's usually the case, though, at least from my experience, that most software teams have a hard time finding the sweet spot between the two. So from most of the times that I've been working in teams, I see one or two problems. Either you are too far into the planning of things, if it's a dysfunctional team now, of course. If you're either too far into the planning and the rituals, in other words, you're very product management or management heavy, or you have a lot of problems with legacy, ad hoc work processes, hacky solutions, etc., etc. And so what I usually say is that the goal is to have both of these things work in harmony with each other, because I mean, everybody wants to ship as fast as possible, but as I like to say, that's only true as long as things are working. Nobody, it's always that trade-off, a very good thing to think about for those around you is sort of like, everybody cares about the environment, but if you ask them, should we fix the environment, then most people say, yeah, that sounds really good. But then you say, and the only thing you have to pay for it is that you can't use your mobile phone, and we have to cut all salaries by 50% or something like that. All of a sudden there's a consequence now to doing that, which maybe not as many people would care about. And so there's always a trade-off. It's the same thing here with planning, where if I tell you that, well, we can move really, really fast if we just let the developers do whatever they want, that sounds really good. But if I then tell you that, yeah, but if you do that, basically nothing is ever going to work. After 6 months, you're going to be in a state where you can't really hire people anymore, or your system is going to have a lot of bugs and issues and so forth. Then people are going to go, oh, no, that we can't have, so we have to have a manager. And then you go, all right, cool, let's introduce a manager. They are going to, if it's a good manager or like a bad manager, then you have, and this is the really harsh truth now, guys, at least from my perspective. What you don't tell people, because they don't really understand that, is that, yeah, you're going to pay another person, and if you get the wrong person, which is very likely because most people don't know how to hire a good engineering manager or tech lead or something like that, that person won't actually make anything go faster. They won't necessarily, it's basically a bet. You're betting that this person is going to make you more effective. But since nobody measures these sorts of things, it's hard for you as whoever is, the boss, to actually know, is this making any difference? It's as I like to call it, it's gut feeling driven development, which is what every single company I know does, like even the really large ones. Because at the end of the day, most companies are absolute shit at figuring out, like, it is literally like almost a religious thing. Like, we add these things and then we get more results, but they don't actually check were the results better or worse? Like, what metrics are you using to determine if this is an effective person? How do you evaluate if this new manager actually has a positive impact on the end results? And that's the thing that is important, because when you're doing these things right, these things are the same thing, because the idea is that if you take the time to plan and actually do things properly, that you should be able to get a net benefit, because the planning should really make you reach higher levels of quality within the system, which should reduce the amount of bugs and issues and other things that you have to do. That usually happens when you have a lot of development velocity, but not so much quality and things like that, because that's the thing that usually happens. People start spending more time on bugs and issues, and people lose faith in the system when there's an ad hoc work process. And that is a sweet spot type of thing, those things that I like to tell you, that like every company has a different level, and it really depends on your business model, what type of product you're selling or working with, what's the quality of your developers, because some developers are really, really good and they can work completely ad hocly and still make a decent system. It's a knobs and dials situation. You have to fine tune things to get to that sweet spot, and very few teams are able to find that sweet spot, and that's usually why you get this sensation that in one company everything is ad hoc and very quick like, which is true in many cases, and in some like they go like full safe or like full super managed. Everything is a planning meeting, everything is super prepared, etc., etc., and everything there in between. So what I want you to take away from this is that in an ideal world, there should be no real difference between development and being very fast and planning and doing things correctly, because they're supposed to work together. It's usually just the case that most people don't really understand that this is the thing that I call it's the talent problem. That's why I say to people, and you've heard me say this in many videos, where like the problem isn't that you don't have tools or processes or like ways of dealing with problems. The problem is idiots, or like people who don't really know how to do this, because this is a talent industry. Just as I had that conversation with my boss the other day, and he told me that he was questioning how fast, I guess in this case it was a specific developer, and I was more or less defending my developer, and I said, because he was saying, oh, this guy is really slow, and I go, yeah, because at this moment, like, he's not talented enough to be faster at this point. The reason why he needed all the support is because he is at a level where this is as fast as he can move. And he said, and then my manager said, oh, well, maybe we should bring in more people. And I say, yeah, who are you thinking about? And I know the people that he's talking about. And I go, yeah, but they are basically at the same level of talent. And that's the key thing. These people, like these guys, if you give them the right tools, if you do the prep work, if you have someone who really knows their stuff to set everything up just so, they will produce code. As I told them this, they will produce, you will get stable, good results because you've taken the time, like you've added real leadership or something like that to the team. So the leadership should have taken care of setting up a work environment where someone who may not be a super developer can still produce value for the company. But if you're looking for someone who is going to work faster or just be quicker and better at solving all these problems, that's a talent problem. It's exactly the same thing. It's like with football players or athletes. Everybody knows the same, on average, the same sort of ways of training and how to do exercise and so forth. But some people have real raw talent and dedication, all of this other stuff, and that takes them to another level than what most people are able to do. And that's the problem with these sorts of things, where when you say that we're going to find that sweet spot, we're going to make a really efficient team, and we're going to make all these things happen. You can say these things and you can try to do your best, which is what you should be doing with trying to use the practices in the industry and so forth. But to really get it quote unquote right, you need people who really understand how to make that happen. And that is usually why you don't see these things, because it's very difficult to find someone who has that real understanding of both the software development and the leadership and all of this sort of stuff, and understands that, all right, so these are the things from the planning part that we really need here, because that's going to make us actually produce better, and these are the things we can throw away because not all of it is going to be relevant, and here are the coding practices that we should skip on or we should keep and so forth. It's really difficult to find someone who has that level of understanding, and that's why most companies fail at doing it, because you're either getting a manager who is like doesn't know anything about software development, doesn't know what's important, etc., etc., or you're getting just ad hoc developers who don't really know how to structure their own work processes or do basic things like planning and so forth. They just kind of code away because that's what they're interested in. And so most companies are trying to find some type of measurement of balance between these type of groups, and that is, as I said, it's very difficult. It requires very talented individuals to do it really well. Have a great day.